Morning guys, how's everyone doing? This is Nick from ForexForNoobs.com with the daily analysis. Today is Tuesday the 21st of January 2020 and the time is 10:01 here in the UK. You're looking at a EURGBP daily chart. In today's analysis we're going to be looking for price action setups across all these pairs to the right here. So let's get started. We're just going to dive right in. Hey Ernesto. Hey Olu. Hey Leo, Colin. Right. First things first, EURGBP looks like it's finally turning around. Took a short here recently, didn't work out for us. Looks like it's turning around now. We had the right idea, just a bit of an early entry, I guess. USD CAD. Opportunity to go short here on USD CAD. On USD CAD. Bit of a late entry. Ah, damn it. It's too late, guys. If we started like 2 minutes earlier, could have got in this one. It's a nice little short, but yeah, you could still pull off a 2 risk to reward ratio, but you'd have to have a pretty tight stop. The ideal entry would have been at the start of this 1 hour candle, giving you a much better risk to reward ratio. Or a quicker target. Oh well. I'm going to keep an eye on this trade, but that's a missed one. New Zealand USD, this was going well at the start of last week, but this one should have been closed out on Friday because it didn't really go anywhere. So this is essentially break-even trade. Euro USD ended up going down quite nicely. New Zealand CAD's at the bottom of this range. The risk to reward ratio just isn't there on this one though. Alright, so what I'm going to do is just reorder these alphabetically and kind of start from the top. Right, so there's a potential long on forming on AUDUSD. And today's news is it's pretty much just Canadian news until tomorrow, which is this news report, 12:30 a.m. That's still 14 hours away. A daily chart trade generally doesn't wrap up in 14 hours. So you'd probably, if you're looking to trade AUD, doesn't wrap up or it doesn't trigger within 14 hours of a point like this. So I don't think this report's going to affect us because it's unlikely we would be in a long trade on AUD by this point, and if we are, then it could probably affect us. Point is, we're unlikely to be in a trade at this point because right now it looks like it's just stalling out. So this probably won't trigger until tomorrow. Tomorrow afternoon on the 12-hour. And after that, there's no AUD reports, so we're clear on AUD. Nice. As for the news in general, it's just CAD stuff tomorrow, guys. Obviously, for the CAD news, if you're in a CAD trade, you do want to watch out for... sorry, I meant to say today, guys. You do want to watch out for this at 3 p.m. if you're in a CAD trade. The trade I shared with you guys for CAD, that's too late to enter. This is a 1 hour chart trade, so that's fine to enter because we're still 5 hours away from that report. So you could easily hit target within those 5 hours, otherwise just close the trade out. Or tighten your stop loss or do whatever. Hey, Rashad. But anyway, let's keep going and looking for some setups. So there's a potential here on AUDUSD on the 12-hour, on the 8-hour perhaps, but I'd probably go for the 12-hour or the daily on this one. We're seeing price stalling out on support. It's bounced from the support area twice already. So we're just looking for another bounce from the support area. Let's keep a close eye on it. If it does stall out, there's potential for a bounce. But also, there is potential for a short here, guys, if it does break through this area. Yeah. If it breaks through this area, there's potential for a short. There's a few things going on here. First of all, there's a bit of a head and shoulders pattern, which is something that I'm looking to incorporate into my overall... Oh, there goes Colin with it. Incorporate into my overall strategy because head and shoulders do seem pretty effective. So we've got a bit of a head and shoulders pattern going on here. But beyond that, it's tried to get above this 200 moving average. The 200 moving average, I know I say I don't use indicators, and sometimes people say, well, you don't use indicators. Why do you have the 200 moving average? The 200 moving average is purely a support resistance area. It's a self-adjusting support resistance area. I don't use it for moving average crosses and all that stuff. I'm using it as a support and resistance area. Big banks, hedge funds, the traders in these places, managed funds, etc., the big boy traders, they have these. They have the 200 moving average on their charts. It's just a kind of a standard that you get on charts from for traders. So just because of that, it does have some impact. Just because the biggest traders on the planet have this on their chart, it has some price action impact. It does act as a support resistance area. You do see just clear bounces from the 200 moving average quite often. So I'm using it as essentially a support resistance area. Now, I know you guys who are sitting in the room right now know this, but I'm speaking more to people who are watching this as a recording on YouTube and are new to my overall strategy. So yeah, this is just a support resistance area. Now, what we have is price breaking below the support area, that is the 200 moving average, coming back up, testing it, and then starting to continue down. Whenever you get price breaking clearly below or above the 200 moving average, it indicates a switch in the trend. Now, obviously, that doesn't always play out as an actual switch in the trend, because we did get a break above the 200 moving average, but it fizzled out pretty quickly and came back down. So the 200 moving average in this scenario kind of gives us a little hint that perhaps price is starting to push down again. But there are conflicting things here. This is one of these trades where there's a lot of conflicting data. So it's hard to know what price is going to do. So that's why I'm prepared for multiple scenarios. There's a decent trend line. It cuts through this point, but it does have some pretty solid bounces that's breaking right now. But if you want to do, yeah, we haven't really got a trend line there. I know this is a little confusing, but this where AUDUSD sitting right now is a little confusing. We got it on support, stalling out right now. So if you look at, let's say, for example, the 4 hour, we can see signs of it stalling out. We can see this big lower wick. The previous candle closed as indecision. The current candle, which is only 13 minutes old, so can't put much stock in what it's doing, but it's clearly not moving down with any conviction. So we're getting a lot of conflicting data here. That's why I'm saying there's potential for a long trade if it stalls out, but we have no idea if it's going to completely stall out on the daily right now or on the 12 hour. It could very well continue down. If it continues down, an argument can be made for a short trade. So this is very much a wait and watch kind of situation. I'm going to watch the daily and the 12 hour closely. If I see indecision forming, what's indecision? Well, indecision will probably look something like this. This is just a classic indecision candle. Oops. Something like that. If we get something like that forming, then I'll be looking for a long. If something like that doesn't form and it breaks through and does more something like, why don't I just zoom in? I don't have to draw them so small. And it does something like this instead. Then I'll be looking for a short. So I'm going to let the candles guide me on how to approach AUDUSD in the coming days. Does that make sense, guys? Does everyone get where I'm coming from with that? A lot of people, when they watch analysis, they want a definitive AUDUSD is going down. AUDUSD is going up, but there's nothing ever really definitive when it comes to trading. The best thing is to be prepared for both scenarios and trade accordingly when one of those scenarios comes to pass. Interesting on EURGBP. I think we spotted this last week, but it was a bit early to call it a range. Still not fantastic, but there is potentially a range here that price is stuck in. We'll keep an eye on that, but this one's not really, we want it to hit the bottom of the range, so this one's, it probably won't turn into anything, but let's just keep an eye on it. I'll explain in more detail. I'll explain in more detail later. when we wrap things up. Similar head and shoulders here on EURUSD that we have on AUDUSD. I don't put much stock in trend lines, by the way. I'm just drawing this just because I like to draw trend lines, but I don't really trade them. I just don't find them reliable enough to trade, but I will on occasion just draw them on my chart if they're obvious and they make sense. We do have a trend line. It is stalling out on the trend line, but it's also stalling out on our support area. It's a very similar scenario here on EURUSD, guys. There's multiple options. If it stalls out, we could be looking at a long, although this one would be tougher to get in because we're already seeing a pretty solid indecision candle on the daily chart. And I just don't really see this as a viable entry here on the daily chart. Trading this would give us a very poor risk to reward ratio. So I don't see this as a viable long trade at the moment. So what we would need to see for a viable long would be for price to fall deeper into support and then give us some indecision on top of the support area, kind of like this. And then we could look for a long from, somewhere here, stop loss there, and then we'd have a better risk to reward ratio. So we don't know if that's going to happen, but we definitely have a bit of a head and shoulders pattern here. Still not perfect, not as clear as the AUD/USD one, but it's still a head and shoulders pattern. So let's see if it manages to break this low here. There's potential for a short, or let's see if it stalls out here in the coming days on top of this 1.107 or 1.1080 support area. What were we up to? Yeah. Potential short here on USDCHF with the trend. I'll explain that more in a sec. Let's just finish up looking at these potentials and then right. So USDCHF, we've got a bit of a bearish trend, although it's not a very strong one. Price pulling back up to resistance, so we could see a continuation of this trend here. It's a pretty weak setup in my eyes because the trend itself is really not that strong. Trend itself is from the 28th, starting at the 28th of November. It's not a particularly strong trend. It hasn't significantly broken any major lows until the last few days, and this break is looking quite weak. See this significant low here on the 9th of August. It's just gotten below that, and it's already looking pretty weak. So in terms of the strength of this trend, it's a very weak trend. Therefore, trading a continuation of a very weak trend isn't, it's doable. You could enter the trade, but you wouldn't expect as much as you would from a very strong trend, is what I'm trying to say. So this one is actually pretty ready to go. You could enter this one potentially today. You could already be in it, in theory, but I want to see it push down a bit further than it already has. Honestly, I don't really like this setup, I have to say. I don't see any clear entry points. But yeah, you could enter on a new low, but beyond yesterday's candle, but it's a bit of a risky one, guys. Keep an eye on it. Keep an eye on it, I would say. If you want to enter it, there is potential for a short here on USDCHF. I don't particularly like it, but there you go. USD-ZAR. I know this isn't a common pair. ZAR is the South African rand. I know it's not a common pair, guys, but it doesn't mean that it's not going to give you a viable trade. And if your broker provides it at a fair spread, and remember, spreads are relative to how much. So basically, if you have a 500 pip spread, but you can potentially make 10,000 pips on a trade, it's all relative, isn't it? That's the same as a 50 pip spread and a 1,000 pip target, or a 5 pip spread and a 100 pip target. So, well, that still sounds kind of bad, but you get what I mean. It's all relative. So when you look at a spread and it's huge, just keep in mind that that doesn't necessarily mean that it's not worth taking the trade. The spread is relative to the size of the target, as long as you have a reasonable target. So keep that in mind. There is a viable short here. Basically, what I would do is wait for today's candle to close. If it closes similar to what it looks like now, then we could enter something like this. Potential to enter around about here, target around about here. So yeah, viable short on USD-ZAR. What I'm most interested in, really, guys, is AUDUSD and EURUSD. These look pretty solid. We could get a long on AUDUSD in particular if price stalls out on support. If it breaks through, then I'll definitely be looking for a short here. So I'm very interested in these ones. I'll follow up on these ones tomorrow in tomorrow's analysis if they haven't triggered yet. But obviously, we can discuss these on the forum for all members. Are there any questions, guys? All right, it doesn't look like there's any questions, so I'm going to wrap this one up. Thank you guys for attending. Keep an eye on all these potential setups. I'll follow up on them in tomorrow's analysis. Tomorrow's analysis will be a members only analysis. Wednesdays is members only. By members only, I mean Forex Mastermind members. So all you guys sitting in this room right now. So we'll follow up on these tomorrow. Thank you guys for attending, and I'll see you guys on the forum.